high-flying offenses took the American by storm in Week 7. Defenses made some powerful statements. And as we've somehow already passed the halfway mark of the college football season, teams are creating separation between the contenders and pretenders. It's time for All-American. I'm your host, Morgan Uber. Welcome back after a 2-week break. So glad to have you here with us. We're going to take a look back at all of the action from Week 7 on the gridiron. Plus, we'll break down everything you need to know about Week 8 and the #1 wide receiver, not only in this conference, but in the entire country, you could argue, will be joining the show coming up. But since it has been 2 weeks, why don't we take a look here at the conference standings, as there has been some shakeup here. We're starting to see some movement. 4 teams really separating themselves at 2-0. Tulane, UTSA, SMU, and FAU. 6 teams there sitting at 500, with Navy and South Florida both at 2-2. Memphis, North Texas, Rice, and Tulsa at 1-1. And one of those teams that I mentioned, North Texas, they've got the tall task of facing the Green Wave this weekend, who jumped back into the top 25 this week after their win over Memphis. They come into the AP poll at number 23, and head coach Willie Fritz jumped right into the hands of his players, riding the wave after that win over Memphis. A 25-year drought has ended. Tulane coming away victorious at the Liberty Bowl for the first time since 1998. There's going to be no better part of the game day experience for head coach Willie Fritz, jumping into the arms of his players. And there's no better part of our week than welcoming in college football ESPN analyst Taylor McHargue. Taylor, great to have you here with us today. What a game that was Friday night. Memphis and Tulane back and forth, but Tulane prevailing, outscoring the Tigers 14-0 in that fourth quarter. What stood out to you?
I thought it goes back again to Tulane's defense, like it always does. And Seth Hennigan for Memphis, I really thought played pretty well. He had the 2 interceptions, but the one in the second half was not his fault. The struggle for Memphis was running the football. They did not get to 50 yards on the ground as an offense, and I thought you really saw that in the second half, where Tulane started to get some momentum, and Memphis had some drives stalled and just could not figure out a way. I mean, they scored with about 10 minutes left in the third quarter, and then they did not score again the remainder of the game. And that front 7 for Tulane, so dynamic, really violent and physical at the point of attack, and you saw that in the second half, and I think that was the biggest difference in that game.
Tigers leading rusher Blake Watson did not play in the second half. Chipped up was the term that Coach Silverfield used post-game, and Monday he said that he's day-to-day, so we'll have more on that matchup for the Tigers coming up this later on. But for Tulane, they host North Texas here. The Mean Green coming off their first win in the American, behind an explosive offense, taking down Temple 45-14. The Mean Green has the #1 scoring offense right now in the American. So, Taylor, if you're Tulane, who's keeping you up at night here this week?
Yeah, Jamori Macklin, no doubt in my mind. It's a guy for North Texas that has scored in every game so far this season, had the 2 touchdowns for them as well. And since they moved to Chandler at the quarterback spot, really you've seen them open up that passing attack and learning how to win. Right, I mean, that's a big focus for them in the first season for Eric Morris, trying to piece together wins, piece together momentum. And Jamori Macklin, really dynamic player on the outside. I think he's one of the best receivers that we have in this conference. And for Tulane on the other side, there's absolutely going to be an emphasis in trying to limit his touches and limit his explosive plays as well.
The Mean Green going to the Crescent City, ESPN 2 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Taylor, who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Tulane. I think North Texas, for all the momentum that they've created, definitely playing better. I think this conference, Tulane proved again that this conference runs through New Orleans right now. And the comeback win, the way that they were challenged by Memphis to close that game out, I'm going to go with Tulane. And frankly, I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt until they prove otherwise.
Tulane 2-0 in conference, as is Tom Herman and the Florida Atlantic Owls. And here's what the head coach had to say after their statement 42-point win over their in-state rival, South Florida. Take a listen.
When we get back to Boca Raton, that flag is going to get planted in the real South Florida, okay? In Palm Beach County, in Boca Raton, on the 50-yard line, where it'll stay for a year, not on the 50, but it'll stay in our house at least for a year.
The real South Florida. Ooh, those are some fighting words from head coach Tom Herman. For this team, Taylor, it's been really interesting. Quarterback Casey Thompson goes down, and we've had to see Daniel Richardson step up and really take command of this offense. What's impressed you?
I think this offense is better right now with Daniel Richardson than they were with Casey Thompson. They're delivering the ball downfield at a rate that they weren't. LaJohntay Wester on the outside, we'll talk about him more in a little bit, one of the best receivers in this conference as well. But for Daniel Richardson, he feels like he's in total command of this offense, really good touch throwing the football. Look, this is a guy led Dade County all time in passing yards coming out of high school. Played for Central Michigan, threw for over 400 yards against Oklahoma State when he was there. So he's used to throwing the football and putting up big numbers, and you're seeing that for FAU right now. And I think we have to start talking about FAU may be the dark horse in this conference, that we thought maybe UTSA would be the team out of the new teams that pops up that could compete for this conference. I think, especially after this week against UTSA, if FAU wins, we have to start having that conversation about the Owls.
What says winning in paradise more than these sand color uniforms they're going to be wearing this weekend against UTSA? What a bold move by the equipment staff for Florida Atlantic. They'll be wearing these here this weekend. A pretty cool video unveiling these on a yacht. Taylor, drip or drown? What do you think of these here?
I love these. I actually, when I saw these, I texted a couple people that I know down on that staff, their wide receivers coach, David Beatty, and he was one of my coaches back in the day. And I'm a fan of these jerseys. I'm a fan, really, of almost any alternate. They've got to be pretty bad for me not to like them, but I'm definitely a fan of these jerseys.
Okay, all I saw was the still on No Context College Football of the three guys sitting at the table just with their arms crossed and in those helmets before I saw the video, so that made me laugh. That's all I can see now when I see that video. But back to their matchup here this weekend. You'll be on the call with Richard Cross, talking to coaches and players here early on this week. What are your early impressions of what you expect to see here in this matchup?
Yeah, for UTSA, I think you're going to have the best game from Frank Harris that he's played so far this season. I thought the win that they had over UAB was a big win for them, but they still are not asking a lot of him throwing the football. FAU is going to try and make UTSA one-dimensional on the other side and take away their run game that we saw against UAB. And then on the other side, UTSA is going to have to get pressure on Daniel Richardson, because if you let him sit back there and deliver the football to some of their weapons, specifically the LaJohntay Wester on the outside, they're going to score points. And in this game specifically, UTSA does not want this to turn into a track meet where you're having to go back and forth trading touchdowns. I think that benefits FAU, especially playing at home.
So we know Richardson, he went off 382 yards against South Florida. What is more important for the Roadrunners? Hot take here. Is it Frank Harris or UTSA's secondary?
I think it's Frank Harris. And I'll say it again. I think he has to have his best game to this point in the season for them to win this game. Last week against UAB, only averaged 5 yards of completion. A lot of it was underneath, quick games, screens. They didn't hit a lot of explosives over the top. FAU is going to force them to try and throw the ball down the field is what I think we'll see going into this game. And for Frank Harris, has been a little bit banged up. Do we see them utilize him anymore in the run game, out of design quarterback run game? And then again, have to hit those explosive plays over the top against this Owls defense.
The Roadrunners are 22-3 under head coach Jeff Traylor since he's taken over there in San Antonio. So they find another gear in conference play. They have 6 left. Let's take a look at what they have here coming up down the stretch of the season. 6 conference games to go. Check out the win probability here according to ESPN Analytics. Over 70% for 4 of the next 6. Florida Atlantic has the slight edge, though, this week. We know just how good the Roadrunners have been at home historically, but they have to go on the road to face Tulane in that final game. Tulane favored big in that one. Taylor, what are your thoughts as you take a look here at this?
Yeah, I think it's very clear that this is the fork in the road in the season. If they win this game, everything sets up for them to run the table the rest of the way in, and then it all comes down to that matchup in New Orleans against Tulane. Now, it's not to say that the season's over and the conference race is over if they lose this week against FAU, but it does put them in the driver's seat. I'll say it again for FAU. That's what's so pivotal about this game, is that they're both sitting here in the early part of the conference season, undefeated. You can start to control your own destiny for either side that wins this game. And for UTSA, if they win, there's a chance that you see them play Tulane. If both of them are still sitting there undefeated, it may end up being they're playing for home field advantage in a rematch for the conference championship.
Meanwhile, 4 hours north of San Antonio, the SMU Mustangs and head coach Rhett Lashley also have something cooking as they are 2-0 in conference and outscoring opponents 65-26 in conference. Taylor, this was one team you had your eye on at the beginning of the season. You were big on them, thought that they had the potential and had the tools, the players to win their first American championship this year. What do you hope to see from them on Friday night at Temple?
I want to see them put together a complete game. And make no mistake about it, they're playing a Temple team that they are far better than. They're more talented. They have more depth. They should win this game convincingly. But we thought the same thing last week about them against East Carolina, and they didn't. That game goes, it's a one-score lead going into the fourth quarter against an ECU team that they should have beat really more convincingly. And I go back to the loss against TCU a few weeks ago up until now. Just don't feel like we've seen complete games get put together for SMU and what I consider to be a really talented Ponies roster. Just want to see them put together a four-quarter performance. And if you're an SMU fan, you're hoping for the same thing because this schedule will get more difficult as we push along. They have one more opportunity against a team that they're going to be a lot better than Temple this week, like we've mentioned. I want to see them win convincingly to establish again that they deserve to be one of the favorites in this conference.
Temple quarterback E.J. Warner did not play last week against North Texas, and he's listed right now day-to-day in concussion protocol, as Stan Drayton said here in his presser this week. 7 p.m. ESPN2 Friday night. Taylor, who do you take in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with SMU. I think, again, too much talent right now, too much depth, especially if E.J. Warner can't go. Worry about what the quarterback room looks like behind him. But either way, even if E.J. can go, I'm still taking SMU in this one.
Well, we have a full day on Saturday. Every TV window jam-packed. Let's take a look at that Saturday slate. We've got the day starting with Memphis at UAB and Air Force at Navy, a battle of the service academies. We'll get into that matchup here in a minute. We've got a new rivalry in the making between Charlotte and East Carolina at 2 p.m. in South Florida. We'll be facing a former American Conference foe, UConn, at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Thursday night, Rice at Tulsa. Both teams coming off a bye. Two teams at 3-3 overall, 1-1 in conference play. Taylor, what intrigues you here with this matchup between the Owls and Golden Hurricane?
What stands out to me is for Rice, this is a big game for them in the road to bowl eligibility. They're about to go through a gauntlet of a schedule. After this, they have Tulane, SMU, and then UTSA. And they're not going to be favored in the next few games. They're going to have to beat at least one or two teams that they're not going to be favored against if they want to try and get to 6-6 and get to a bowl. And for both of these teams, Morgan, you mentioned they're sitting there at 500 right now. 4-3 is going to feel a lot different than 3-4 as they begin the back half of their schedule.
One team looking to keep things rolling, the Navy midshipmen. They would have to pull off an upset against Air Force here as they host the Falcons at home, number 22 in the country. This is a game noon, sold-out crowd at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. They'll be playing for the Commanders-in-Chief Trophy. Now, this is pretty significant here between Army, Air Force, and Navy. The Mids have won the trophy 11 of the last 20 years. It's the 56th meeting on the gridiron between Navy and Air Force. And I love this stat at the bottom. The home team has won 9 of the last 10. So between that Navy and Air Force matchup, Taylor, what is the biggest thing that you're looking for here in this matchup?
Well, anytime you have service academies that play one another, you really can throw the book out the window because regardless of who's favored, you have Air Force coming in, riding high. They're ranked now, undefeated, look like a team out of the Mountain West that is the favorite to win that conference. But anytime these academies get together, you have these crazy outcomes. A lot of times you'll see Army, Navy at the end of the year, even if back in years past where Army wasn't as good, Navy you think is going to come in and win big, and then they get upset. So pay attention this week, especially early kick. This is going to feel like 9 a.m. local for Air Force. Is there any sort of slow start for Air Force in this game? And then also from the conference perspective, you already have Air Force out ahead of the American Conference and ahead of Tulane. Interesting to see as we start to the rest of the season comes into full form. Which of these teams it's going to be battling for a New Year's Six Bowl, some early season implications if Navy could get a win here against Air Force.
Air Force currently undefeated, but they may be without their starting quarterback. Zach Larrier left the game against Wyoming with a knee injury, and their head coach, Troy Calhoun, said he is, quote, out for a while. So definitely could be a major factor and could play into the advantage of the Mids. So who's your take in this one?
Yeah, because of that, I'm going with Navy. And I think last week we saw they're dealing with some injuries of their own at the quarterback spot. But I think this will be a week where you get back. Maybe Ty Lovtai can go. Maybe he can't. If it's Braxton, I think they'll build around him. I think Navy will have some shot plays ready to go and schemed up. I expect a low-scoring game like a lot of times we see in these games between academies. But I'm going to go with Navy in the upset in this one.
So we go from a trophy that's presented at the White House by the President of the United States to a matchup where the trophy is literally a rack of ribs. The best trophy, in my opinion, in all of college football. The battle for the bones reignited between Memphis and UAB here this weekend. We asked both head coaches who had the better barbecue. Here, take a listen to this.
Oh, Birmingham, man. I'm all about the B-ham now, about the 205.
Well, it's a simple answer, right? Memphis has the best barbecue. If you look at my stomach line and my waistline, that would certainly tell you that Memphis has the best barbecue.
The texture of it coming off those baby back ribs. To me, it's all about the Birmingham baby back ribs. And I've fallen in love, believe it or not, with the turkey too at full moon.
The Memphis barbecue is a lot like the city. It's got this unique, special flavor that you can't find anywhere else in the world. It makes our barbecue the absolute best.
Okay, these guys making me extra hungry right now, and unfortunately, I can't take either side because I've yet to try either. I hate that I have to admit that. Taylor, you've told us the same. So fans, Memphis UAB fans, hit us up on social media. Give us your take on why you think your city has the better barbecue. And when Taylor and I make trips to Birmingham and Memphis, we'll be sure to give it a try. But what Taylor can give us his opinion on is his take in this one. Who has the edge on the field?
I'm actually going to go with UAB in this direction. I think they look a lot different at home than they do on the road. I think you'll see an improved Jacob Zeno at home and a bounce back against UTSA. And look, early in the season, sitting at 2-5, they've got to start to string some wins together. What's going to be critical for Memphis is can they get over the hangover of that loss at home against Tulane and the way that they lost in that game where they gave up the 11-point lead. For that reason, I'm going with UAB. I think you'll see them play some inspired football. They tend to start fast. We saw that against Tulane earlier in the year, and UAB didn't close that game out. But look, I think there's something different about UAB when you get them in Birmingham versus on the road. So I'm going with the Blazers.
Can't wait to see that trophy on Saturday. Should be a fun one. Always really exciting when we get to see a good college football rivalry. Taylor, enjoy Boca Raton, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan.
Till I get to the top. Till I get to the top.
Wester's got it. Touchdown, Owls. Just the punter to beat. Javonte Wester will take it. And he strikes again for FAU.
Florida Atlantic's LaJohntay Wester is the only player in the country averaging over 10 receptions per game. And on Saturday at South Florida, Wester had 10 receptions, totaling 123 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And he joins us right now here in the American studios. LaJohntay, great to have you here with us today. Yeah, appreciate it. For a guy that grew up just 30 minutes outside of Tampa, you play South Florida. How personal was this game for you?
It was very personal, because USF actually was recruiting me kind of at one point in my junior year of high school, but they just never threw me an offer. So I kind of took that personal and remember when they didn't offer me, I made them pay on Saturday.
I mean, and to do it in front of so much family, friends, over 50 plus people there coming out to support you. What was that experience like?
It was amazing, especially to get my first college punt return back in the crib in front of my family and friends. It was an amazing feeling. My grandma was out there. It was a blessing. It was an amazing feeling.
What was one thing that your grandma told you after the game?
That she's so proud of me. She even texted me late last night, probably around 1 o'clock in the morning, just sending me pictures and videos of her at the game. She enjoyed herself, so that was a good feeling to see her finally get out the house and make it to a game, and just see her have a great time.
Yeah, to have that support, and you mentioned that punt return, 67 yards to the house, the first of your career. What do you remember telling yourself as you caught that ball?
This the one. This the one. So after the punter punted the ball, and I seen the hang time on it, I told myself, I said, this the one. And once I made that one move on the guy and I was stumbling, all I was telling myself was, don't fall. Please do not fall. Once I kept my balance, I knew we was going to the crib with that one.
You got it done. We're talking a lot about family. I know it's extremely important to you, and to have this experience and sharing this experience playing Division I football with your brothers, Jalen and John, is it more fun to have them as teammates or growing up playing backyard football with the brothers?
Both. I think those they go together with each other, you know. When we was growing up, we was real competitive. You know, when we playing against each other, we going at each other hard. But when we play together on the same team, nobody, even growing up, nobody couldn't beat us when we was on the same team. So, you know, to be able to play at a high level together, it's a blessing, an amazing feeling.
If you think about all the memories, all the experiences that you've shared with them, what's your favorite that really stands out from all these years?
Oh man, probably when we won our district championship in high school together. We all had 1 year when we played on varsity at Palmetto High School together and won the district championship. So, you know, to be a champion, to win the district championship together as brothers on the same team, it was a great feeling.
And then now, Division I football, Florida Atlantic, to have the season that you're having, 62 receptions on the year, more than any other receiver in the country. What is it that separates you from the rest?
My work ethic. You know, I think that's something that separates me from any other receiver in college football. You know, because I'm not the biggest, I'm not the strongest, not the fastest, but I play with a lot of heart and effort. And I think that's what separates me from other guys.
Your head coach, Tom Herman, said that you're a player that could go and play anywhere in the country with the talent you have. Why is it that you want to play for him at Florida Atlantic?
Like I told him after the game, I tell him after every game, just thanking him for the opportunity that he gave me and believing in me, because a lot of people they didn't believe I could make it this far. So I tell him every time, just thank you for believing in me, and I won't let him down. And I'm gonna give him 1,000% every time I step foot on that field.
Coach Herman, obviously, we know has a great offensive mind, and then offensive coordinator Charlie Fry, the way that he uses you, you're all over the field, extremely versatile, the way that they line you up. What is your role? How would you describe your role really in this offense?
Whatever they need me to do. You know, I tell Coach Fry and Coach Herman, don't be afraid to put me here at running back or put me here at outside receiver. I do extra study time so I can be able to be versatile for this offense, you know, because that's what this offense expect me to do. That's my role, like to be that guy. Anytime they need me, I come through and I prepare myself on and off the field to be able to perform on Saturday.
What's your favorite spot? Where do you love playing?
I love playing in the slot. That's my primary position, you know. So that's my favorite spot for real. But I like going on the outside sometimes because, you know, it's a lot of one-on-one coverages. You know, that never gets old. You get a lot of one-on-one coverages. So, but the slot, that's where I make a lot of my money at.
Right, I had a feeling you would say that. And, you know, Stormy Bonantomi, she was our sideline reporter for ESPN on this game, covering this game. One of the things that she told me was that you are the catalyst, the energy on the sideline, hyping up the guys on the sideline and also your teammates on the field. Where do you get your energy from?
I think that's just knowing, like, I can't do this by myself. So I know this is a team sport, and I know that my teammates feed off my energy. So if my energy is skyrocket, my teammates' energy is going to be skyrocket. If my confidence is skyrocketing through the roof, their confidence is going to be skyrocketing through the roof. So, you know, I just try to keep that energy, keep that juice up on the sideline. And even when we're not out there offensively and the defense out there, I try to keep them motivated and keep the defense hyped, because I know if they make a play and I hype them up, that's gonna make them want to make another play and another play and another play. So it's a win-win for both of us.
One of those teammates, Tony Johnson, in the wide receiver room for you. He goes out and has a breakout game, his first 100-plus receiving yard game of his career. What impressed you about his performance on Saturday?
Man, just the way he was catching the ball Saturday, it was amazing. Like that one-hand catch that he made, I was in disbelief. Like, oh my God, that's all I kept saying. I was on the field watching him, like, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, that's all I kept saying was, oh my God. Yeah, but Tony, he's a hard worker. It's no surprise to me that he came out and performed like that because he comes to work every day in practice and he gives 1,000%. So if you prepare yourself throughout the week and be ready for Saturday, your Saturday performance is going to show what you did throughout the week.
You mentioned the word surprise, and I think many on the outside would look at the quarterback situation for you all. Daniel Richardson stepping in for an injured Casey Thompson, and the way that he's been able to come in and just command this explosive offense. What is it about him and the way that you've been able to create a chemistry and synergy with him that's, really creating some explosion for this group?
Well, we built our chemistry in January when he first got here. D-Rich, he was here before Casey, so we kind of built a bigger bond with him just because he was here longer and before Casey. So that kind of translating over to the field, and now you're seeing the success that we're having with him back at quarterback just because we've built a chemistry with him. He's a great leader, and we always put in extra work. It's never a day that we just right after practice we're going home. No, we stand after getting extra catches, extra routes to build that timing and that chemistry. So yeah.
And now this team 2-0 in conference play. You have UTSA coming up here this weekend. As you watch film on them, it's still early in the week, but what stands out?
Their defense flies around. That's one thing that UTSA always had was a great defense that played with a lot of effort. But we just have to come out and execute. If we come out and execute our plays and play our ball, no turnovers, we should be able to come out victorious for this game.
You guys are going to be looking pretty fly in these new uniforms that were unveiled just the other day. What was your reaction when you saw them?
I was hyped. I can't wait to put them. I can't wait to put them on Saturday. We're gonna look good. We're gonna feel good, and we're gonna definitely play good.
Love it. The recipe to success. LaJohntay, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're now rocking with the best.
Each and every week, the conference announces the weekly awards in men's and women's soccer and volleyball. And right here in America's Best, we take a look at the top performances. In women's soccer, UTSA's Jordan Walker was named the Offensive Player of the Week. The junior scored the game winner for the Roadrunners in the 8th minute of the 2-0 win over Temple on Sunday. And then later in the week, she also scored the game-tying goal in the 64th minute of the 1-1 draw at UAB. In men's soccer, the Defensive Player of the Week was awarded to Temple's Rocco Hoyfleckner. The sophomore led the Owls to their first win over a top 10 team since 2021, scoring the game winner in the 89th minute against the defending national champs, Syracuse. Finally, in volleyball, SMU's Jamison Wheeler claims her second straight American Offensive Player of the Week honors. The outside hitter for the Mustangs averaged over 5 points and 5 kills per set while hitting .288 in a pair of wins over Tulsa. She had a 16-kill, 12-dig performance in the first match and ended the week with a 15-kill, 7-dig outing to complete the sweep. In volleyball, we've got 13 conference matches happening Thursday through Saturday, highlighted by Rice at SMU. The Owls will look to bounce back from their first conference loss happening last week against Florida Atlantic, while the Mustangs, on the other hand, are on a 4-match winning streak. In women's soccer, we have 12 total matches happening Thursday and Sunday. A division title could be locked up as early as Thursday night in the West. Look out for that. And finally, in men's soccer, 4 of our 5 matches happening this week are in conference play. And speaking of men's soccer, our top play this week comes from the pitch. A men's soccer team in the American picking up a win over a top 10 ranked non-conference opponent. You're not going to want to miss this. First, though, we start at number 5 on the gridiron with UTSA hosting UAB late in the 4th quarter. 4th and long for the Blazers. Roadrunners defense looking for one final stop, and it's Elliot Davison with the takeaway. He steals this one right out of the hands of the receiver, and look at Davison showing off his speed with the 85-yard return, and that'll do it. UTSA wins this one 40-21 and are undefeated in conference play. Coming in at number 4, we head to the pitch for women's soccer. Number 9, Memphis at East Carolina. Scoreless here in the first half, but from distance, Anna Hauer shows off her power. The freshman boots it, and this impressive strike ends up being the eventual game winner. And with that victory, the Tigers move to 11-1 on the season. At number 3, more action from Greenville, but it's East Carolina facing Tulsa. The Golden Hurricane lead 2-1 with 15 ticks remaining. The Pirates trying to make some magic, and Annabelle Abbott launches the missile for the equalizer. 7 seconds on the clock. Sydney Shell plays the ball back to the senior forward and right into the eye of the Golden Hurricane defense for this one to finish in a 2-2 draw. At number 2, we head to Tampa for football. Florida Atlantic up 42-14 on South Florida. Quarterback Daniel Richardson airs this one out to Devin Price, who completes an acrobatic catch. Watch this over-the-shoulder one-handed catch for 34 yards. And head coach Tom Herman and the Owls soar to a 56-14 victory on the road to move to 2-0 in conference play. Finally, at number 1, men's soccer. Temple on the road facing the reigning national champ Syracuse under 2 minutes. Knotted up at 1, and Rocco Hoyfleckner nails the top left corner from right outside the 18. And no better time for your first collegiate goal. The Owls pick up their first win over a ranked team in 3 seasons. What a win for Temple. Remember, if you ever see a top play happen live, you can always let us know on social media at American_conf and use the hashtag AmericanTopPlays. Coming up this weekend, there's 8 American football games, 6 of those in conference play. Plenty of action. It all kicks off on Thursday night. You're not going to want to miss it between Rice and Tulsa. We'll break it all down with you next week on All-American. We'll see you then.
1, 2, 3.